introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver.
So we're recording now. So Kate is with Linked Selling, and you'll hear me occasionally revert to
Elite Digital.
Elite Digital. Now I can't remember.
There you go. See, now you're like remembering the new one and not the old one. But
yeah, there you go. But David, they're an agency that we use that does LinkedIn and Facebook marketing, and I might preface it with saying one of the things that we can do, among a bunch of others, is teach you how to do Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, etc. And at the same time, at a certain level of revenue, what we always try to do is farm that out, because your time is one, more valuable, and two, is the companies we can farm it out to tend to do it better than you would do it yourself. And so one of the things I did in all of this is, Kate, as you remember, I kind of insisted upon doing my own for about a year, so I knew how to do it. And I remember I had a lawyer one time did a private placement memorandum, and it was the funniest thing, because he said 3 or 4 times during the process, he goes, if I had known I was teaching you how to do this, not just doing it for you, I would have charged you triple what I charged you. But I always have to be the guy, and Greg always has to be the guy where we learn how everything's happening behind the scenes so we can answer questions on it. And then for our own purposes, we give it to somebody else to do it. But Kate, you had some examples, and what I might also throw at you, since you're new, David, is Greg plays kind of double duty sometimes here. Is he also works with another outsourced company that does websites and search engine optimization, pay-per-click. So you'll hear us refer sometimes to Rev Marketing, and that's an outsourced company. Again, one of the things we'll do this week is go through your current online presence, give you some ways to do it, but also show you ways that you can get up and running with this stuff yourself until you have more money coming in than labor available, and then we'll shift off to outsourcing it, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I love that. I haven't heard an Arkansas accent in a while. Kate, you may not know, but pretty much everybody in my family is from somewhere in Arkansas. So I have my stack of Arkansas jokes. I'll hold them in abeyance. But my mother's from Arkansas. My grandparents retired in Arkansas, and I think I still have 3 cousins and an aunt and an uncle somewhere in Arkansas. Little Rock, Fayetteville, Berryville, and somewhere else. It'll come to me in a second. But he's David's down in Arkansas, closer to Little Rock than to Springdale's the other place that I've had relatives in, Cherokee Village. But hey, Kate, let's give him kind of the A to Z, and everybody watching the replay, since they're recording on a Jewish holiday, so that we get leapfrog off of what I did last time on some of the good and bad advertising, and maybe I think you had some examples of some things that are working right now as well.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, nice to meet you, David. And hopefully I get to meet some of the rest of you on recording at some point in the near future. But I don't know anyone in Arkansas. So number one, here we go. Our company, we're based in St. Louis, Missouri, and my company division is in York, Pennsylvania. So we have people throughout Missouri and throughout Pennsylvania, and a couple of other additional people throughout the states as well. So nice to meet you. And I'll get started? Do you want me to like kind of run through the presentation, or do we
Yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of talk through? Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Why don't you just kind of do it in death
Perfect.
PowerPoint lecture format, and then we can go to more interactive.
You bet. All right. Okay, so basically is
And then your internet connection
going to
starts
be
Right.
a couple.
Your internet connection was a little bit
Okay.
fuzzy there.
How about
Kate.
You're good now.
And this helps you if you want to do it
How
on your
about
own
now?
to understand the
better now?
overall process,
Yeah,
Aaron.
you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, it always freaks out when I go to share screen, so sorry about that. So basically, all of this is just going to be a quick overview of both LinkedIn and Facebook ads, and using those platforms for generating new opportunities for your company. And by opportunity, I mean, getting new people on your list to then nurture through a long-term sequence and long-term relationship management to get them to ideally, invest into your company at some point in the near future. So what we're going to be looking at is using Facebook and LinkedIn as that top of the funnel piece where, you're getting as many people in as possible who fit certain qualifications and certain parameters based on what you're looking for, and then having them become a little bit more qualified by getting some additional information from them, and then using that information and that list to nurture and build that relationship over time with them, and ideally turn them into a client going forward. So we're going to be talking a little bit about a couple of the different pieces in each of these levels of the campaign. And much of this can be automated through the Facebook and LinkedIn campaigns that we or any other company that does that can set up for you throughout the various platforms that you're going to use. And then of course, some personal touch is always necessary and always required. The more follow-up you and your staff can do, the better in most cases. But I'll run through a couple of examples and kind of what we end up using as some of our best practices that we've tested over and over again as to what's worked for financial advisors in the past and is currently working as well. We have some campaigns running for some current financial advisors right now. So basically what the front end is going to be is what we call a lead magnet, which is a strong piece of content that gets them interested in your services, in some of the opportunities that you can help them solve. So in this case, 10 essentials to a stress-free retirement. It's, a nice little checklist, white paper type of thing that people can download for free from Facebook and LinkedIn. And that's what our ads are leading towards, is getting them to download this piece of content to get them to submit their contact information and move forward through your sales process. We use that with on LinkedIn. We use what we call lead forms, which are keeping people within the LinkedIn platform. And that is good because most of this information auto populates, which is really nice. So it's less of an effort for people to opt in, put in their information. It's just a couple of clicks. And then we can also include some additional qualifier questions. So if one of the things that you're looking for is you only want to work with people who have $400,000 or more to invest, you can kind of gauge that interest with a drop-down question that kind of gets that range of where people are in. Now, I will caveat that in saying the more information you try to collect from the very beginning, the fewer people will actually come through and fill out the entire thing. So you want to try to make sure you're getting as minimum amount of information as possible from that very first step, and then work on collecting more information throughout the rest of the funnel, and getting to know them a little bit better as you go, so that, people aren't necessarily going to share all of their personal information to a stranger who they're just opting in because they want a download piece about retirement or something like that. So that caveat being said, the more information, the better, but it is sometimes hard to collect all of that information from the very first get-go. I'll talk about that later. On LinkedIn, it's really nice what you can be able to target by. So in addition to, today's world is a little bit crazy. So maybe you're looking at expanding into more of all of your state or more out of your initial region. You can target by location on Facebook and LinkedIn, but you can get very granular on Facebook as to targeting even just within a mile radius. But then LinkedIn has a little bit more broad targeting available where all of the metro areas are able to be targeted specifically. And then otherwise there's like just states available for targeting, or the entire United States, or, whatever country you want to go after as well. So just being a little bit specific there and who you want to go after. But then on LinkedIn, the nice thing is being able to target by job title, industry, and seniority and age. You're able to get that information based on, what type of, in taking your target audience and putting in the parameters onto LinkedIn or Facebook as much as possible. Facebook is a little bit more restrictive as to going after specific things related to work experience, but there are a few different ways that you can get in front of people in those situations as well. And what were you going to say, Mr. Oliver?
Paul, good to have him. We're going to blow through a lot of information here, Paul, and then we'll go back on a Q&A. But one of the things Paul specifically is doing is we're niching to contractors.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so he's got that in his background. So he would want to be going after general contractors nationally or general contractors California, specifically, probably within an age and parameter. I mean, we could narrow it down way below that, but that would be a for instance of looking for industry, looking for owner, CEO, president, job title, and then niching and targeting from there.
Absolutely. And there are definitely still some ways that you can get in front of those groups on Facebook, but LinkedIn offers that direct pipeline to, anyone within the contracting field as an industry is one of the things that you can target. And then location, of course, and you can even target by specific companies if you're looking for people in a specific company. If there's enough of an audience within that company, I mean, you can't go after 3 people at one company and actually get in front of them, but you can go after, if you have a major employer in your area or something like that. People have used that as, targeting WellSpan Health or something, the whole organization, and then getting in front of those types of people there too.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to actually skip this. So one thing that's good about any of the campaigns is being able to have a variety of different things running at any time. And this is true for LinkedIn and Facebook, where at first, we're getting some good testing information in and good data in about what people are responding to in your audiences and whether they're actually resonating with the information. So if they're actually interested in the lead magnet that's out there, or if we need to work on coming up with something else. Our team works with you on creating all of that material and using that first month or so of testing in the ad campaigns so that we can get that information. And then getting, some split tests running where we're testing copy version A and copy version B, going after the same one and seeing which ones perform the best. And using that theory throughout the entire campaign and being able to utilize, getting as much information as to how people are responding as possible in the very beginning. And then using that information to get more finite with our targeting and get more information as to, this industry is not really responding, so let's try a new one, or vice versa, getting more specific with types of people or locations who are coming through initially. It integrates with any of the systems that you currently have in place for the most part. So if you're getting leads from LinkedIn or Facebook, we can then put them into a CRM if you have one, or we can put them onto spreadsheets so that you can continue to follow up with those leads and track them throughout their process and be able to have their contact information handy at any other time. And then there's some automation aspects that are available where if someone opts in for the lead magnet and downloads your piece of content from the beginning, we can then send multiple follow-up emails and text messages in an automated section where we can get them, following up and getting some more information from you over a period of time over the next week or two, and beyond. That's where you want to keep nurturing people as well, and having, getting your face in front of them as much as possible, getting into their inbox as much as possible, and making sure that you're staying top of mind so that when they do need a financial advisor or any of your other services, they can come through and you're one of the people that comes to mind for them. So let's go into some results. These are currently Facebook results, and LinkedIn would have similar results, but LinkedIn is a more expensive platform across the board, no matter what. So, you can probably expect that the cost per opt-in here, and I'll go into these numbers in a little bit more detail, but basically LinkedIn is 2 to 4 times more expensive than Facebook for most of these campaigns. But the good thing is you're getting more targeted on LinkedIn, and you're able to go after a more specific audience on LinkedIn as opposed to Facebook. So Facebook is great for volume. LinkedIn is great for getting a little bit more niche down into your specific target market. I always recommend doing both because, the more people you having coming into the top of your funnel, the more opportunity you have to close more people at the bottom of your funnel and get them through. So this is an example of some stats that we had from June, just of this past year, for a financial advisor that we were running ads for in Connecticut. And in June, he had 50 opt-ins. So that's 50 people that have downloaded that lead magnet that are now giving their full contact information, and he is able to follow up with them going forward. And those were coming in at just under $12 a piece in June. And that's the ad spend that goes into spending so that people are actually downloading your material. So that's the ad spend going to Facebook. And then the click-through rate is how many people are actually clicking on the ad when it's coming through their news feed or from their phone or wherever they're seeing the ad. And that click-through rate is about 3 times more than what we would normally see. So that shows that people were very interested in this material. And for this one, we were using that 10 Essentials to a Stress-Free Retirement guide that was being given. So there was a ton of action as to people being interested and a lot of clicks happening throughout the entire time that we were running the campaign. On Facebook, you can do this for relatively low cost. In June, this advisor was spending about $500 to $600 a month on Facebook and getting that 50 to 75 probably people that were coming through and added to their list every single month that had shown some interest in their into their services. And we were then able to follow up with them and offer a call as well so that he could get them set up on their initial discovery call or whatever it is that your first appointment with someone would be. We're trying to set up that appointment as well. Just another example here for another advisor in Florida. Same campaign, had 92 downloads, but had 6 people book a call off the back end of the campaign. We always offer the opportunity for people to set up an initial call with you on that right after they download the material. So he did have 6 people book their own calls, and that was really strong so that he had to do nothing for those other than show up for those calls. And then we always, of course, recommend calling all of the 92 people who come through as well, or texting as much as possible as well. And they'll already be receiving some follow-up emails, and making sure that you're staying in front of it and, getting that opportunity to book a call yourself as well. Same thing, the click-through rate was really strong. So it shows again that people were interested. And in these cases, for the most part, we were always targeting 55 and older, and we were looking at specific radiuses around their offices. So these were pretty close-knit campaigns. So in Connecticut, we were targeting like a 30-mile radius or so. And I think about the same for this Florida advisor that we were working with as well.
And Kate, is the 10 Essentials book one that you guys have that's like a public domain book that our guys could use?
It is. Yep. It's something that our team wrote about a year ago, and it already went through the compliance for a couple of different financial advisors. So it already has a lot of that information, kind of taken care of. I know, anytime we do a campaign with someone, everything always has to go through compliance as well, which is no problem. But most of the materials that we are using, from ad copy to the lead magnet itself, the PDF book that people will receive, to the emails that are going out after, have at least been compliance safe, and then every compliance is a little bit different. So, there's always some edits that come through after as well. So, yeah, we do supply all of the materials, and, basically, as long as you're a financial advisor who helps people with retirement, this could be a fit for you. And we can always, flip flop some of the things, like maybe number 8 in the book is something that you don't really want to offer, and we can flip that out with something else too. That's a little bit more specific to your company. So it's customizable, but it is done for you to make it easier.
Well, and so for Paul, you might want to change, you might want to have a different one for the contractors,
Yep.
but this would be a good fit for Aaron.
Yeah.
And even for Paul, depending on what you wanted to target.
Or it could just have a different title, 10 Essentials.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. So it can be customized so that the title calls out to contractors. We can change the image on the front so that there is more of a clear connection to any contractors in that situation. So that would be true for any industry or any type of piece that we'd be using. And again, we're not completely set on this piece either. If you have some content that you've created in the past that has either worked well in another campaign, or maybe you just really like the piece that you've created, we're willing to try it. This is just one that has been tested, and we know it works pretty well. And it's worked in multiple different geographic markets and levels of what people are going after too. So, it's just a good starting point, and then we can customize as needed from there.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. One more download.
It's Lee Milch
example.
here, and I'm
Again,
delighted to interrupt
the
you
48
today
downloads in
and
the
let you
span
know
of a
that I've
month,
been working
and
with
3
Stephen
calls were
Oliver
self-booked.
for
But
10 or
then this
15 years
advisor was
now.
able
He's
to
a great
also book
guy.
another
I
8
love all the
calls off
research
of
that he
their
does.
follow-up that they were doing.
And
So that
I just wanted to let you
significantly
know that if you're
increased
enjoying
the rate of
content on this
people who were
podcast
coming in for an
and you really want
appointment
to make
who had
time
come
to
in off the
visit
list, and those people were only costing $18 to come in for that
And
appointment. So
why should you
really
do that?
strong
Well,
overall.
because you're going to receive two
If
of
you're only
his great
paying
books, and actually
$77
one
for
of
an
mine
appointment
called
in the
Success
span
is
of
an
a
Inside
month,
Job.
and then you
You'll
end up
also get
getting
a
even just one of
lot
those people to
of
come through,
absolutely
your
free
ROI
material on
on that
growing your
campaign is
practice through
hugely
effective
significant.
marketing.
If
So
someone's coming
again,
in with
take the time to go
investable
to
dollars, or any assets that they're able to
advisorwealthmastery.com.
invest with you.
Yeah. And Kate, while we're at this point, let's talk about, I know that David has done some Facebook advertising to fill events. And David, one of the things we talked about was, to me, when you're doing a geographically centric live event, Facebook's a great source, but I always go way beyond that, direct mail, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in order to scale it, because otherwise you oftentimes don't get the kind of numbers you're looking for. Kate, when you were talking about them self-booking, that's directly landing on a page like Calendarly or Schedule Once, which we use a lot, for them to book an appointment directly onto your calendar.
Correct.
One of the things, just to hit a couple things you've already touched base on, Kate, one of the things that I really try to get people in this industry to stop thinking about is who lives in my neighborhood versus who can I sell to, and targeting the person in the right niche, in the right income bracket, rather than just because they're geographic. And I believe the closing rate for essentially everybody should be just as high on Zoom as it is face-to-face. Now, I think Zoom gives you a big bump versus a telephone call, right? And then there's other issues, having good tools, one thing or another to facilitate the sale. But as you expand that radius, it really lets you contract who you're targeting from a standpoint of who they are, right? Get less junk through the pipeline, higher quality, but then a broader geographic audience. Is that a good way to say it, Greg? You know, what I'm trying to say is get out of thinking that it has to be. And Dave, you've done a good job already of going, at least the entire state of Arkansas, not, and hitting different major markets there, rather than thinking, they have to live in your particular town. Of course, when you're in a really small town, it's easier to break that habit of of thinking the other way.
And especially these days, I mean, find me a person that hasn't done a family Zoom meeting or something in the last year and a half where they haven't done something.
Yeah, the pandemic helped with these things.
Yeah.
Not hurt for the target markets we're really looking for.
Yeah. And, for financial advisors, I guess, as long as you're certified in the state or whatever to practice, I mean, that certification can be utilized throughout any, and that opens up a whole broad range of potential new clients as well.
Yeah. Well, like on the insurance side, just need to, file with the individual state at a certain point. So
yeah. So
mostly they want to collect their money.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, follow-up is always going to be key. And we can automate some of that follow-up. In this case, we had just emails going, but there's also opportunity for automated text message follow-up too. But you can see, this first email is the initial delivery of that guide right after they opt in, and then we have a series of emails that go out shortly after over the span of 7 to 10 days depending on the preference of the advisor that we're working with. But you can see there are some people coming through, and there are appointments being made off of it. A click in this one probably means that they went to the calendar page and ideally booked a call with someone. And we're also sharing additional content and additional, information about you, so that we can start building that trust and building that credibility, so that people understand and they know what you're what you're talking about, and you can start becoming that credible, trusted advisor for them by sharing some additional content throughout the next couple of weeks. And again, this series can be expanded and should be expanded, for a weekly email throughout the whole year, and going through there. So you're staying top of mind and you're staying in touch with people, in addition to your individualized follow-up through phone and text message as well. So that's kind of the gist of what a campaign looks like. We kind of covered a little bit about what the potential pieces are, and then, how we set it up for our clients. Every company is a little bit different in how they set up their campaigns. So if there are other, Facebook and LinkedIn companies that you've worked with, there is potential for working with any of them, and they all have their own ways. This one has been proven in multiple markets, and we have 70 or 80 different clients of different industries and things like that throughout the United States at this point, and actually nationally too. We have a few international clients, but been doing it for a long time, and have had a lot of success with, including Dervish. Yep. And we've been running
and a bunch of Canadians, but I just consider them the 51st state. So
exactly. Yeah. Some
I'm sure
candidates
they'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey, is this a good time for questions now?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And so one is that can we ever, as a financial advisor, can we advertise in all 50 states, even though we haven't gotten registered in those states? We wouldn't do that until we had a client that wanted to, use our services, right?
Well, on the insurance side, you can advertise in all 50 states, and then,
Because I just
not-
do the insurance side. I don't do.
I'm not a lawyer, but I have it in the back of my head here for a second. Once you get a client in that state, then you could.
Then you get registered. Yeah.
On the other side, on the assets under management, once you're federally good, you're good, right? I mean, so I'm having a bit of a blank because I just walked through this extensively 2 weeks ago, and then I went off for a long weekend and it faded from my mind. But yeah, it's we have some people who are working with Paul, depending upon who they're using, that can do North America. Most of the advisors I'm working with, we're doing US, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, for instance, I use Peter as an example a lot, but he's got a lot of volume, and we've got everything from Boston to South Florida to Seattle to San Diego just in the last month that he's done. So, it's not a big deal.
And Kate, you said that LinkedIn was about 3 times more expensive. You didn't show any examples of that. Is that just because it's pricier? Why'd you
It
just
is.
use Facebook?
Yep, I didn't have any current examples of a LinkedIn campaign for a financial advisor, to be completely transparent. We are actually currently running Stephen's campaigns, and we're normally seeing a download, and we also run dozens of other LinkedIn ad campaigns. So that measurement of the cost between Facebook and LinkedIn, it holds true throughout any type of campaign that we're running, whether it's for business consultants, which we run a lot of, if it's for, we also run a lot of any type of manufacturing, all of that kind of stuff. The cost ends up being 2 and 3 times more expensive on LinkedIn as it would be on Facebook. But again, that extra cost is often worth it because you're getting a little bit more specific as to who you're targeting. And especially for you, Paul, if you are going after contractors specifically, I would recommend trying out LinkedIn and seeing if it works, and utilizing that targeting availability to get in front of the right people. But on both platforms, you can also upload lists. So if you do have lists of contractors that you can then upload and target them directly, as well as make lookalikes off of that, which is finding people who are similar to those people. It's not always perfect on either platform. It might just be that they have a similarity of kids the same age, and Facebook makes the connection between the two people. But for the most part, it's relatively accurate when you're going after people directly with those lists on either platform. Or you can also, create the lookalike people lists off of that too, to get even more people in your funnel.
Okay, and then
Is that making sense? Uploading a list, so you have a list of
Yep.
people that you're already working with.
Yep.
And for both, Aaron, for you and Paul, you have a list of people that you're already working with, the prospects, and then Kate's company, or if you're working with Facebook or LinkedIn, you can upload those lists. And
Or
number
Google.
one, market to them. But number two, they have algorithms that say we're gonna market to people that look sort of like them, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and let's step back to, for instance, LinkedIn. Kate, is the nice thing about LinkedIn is how organized it is as a database of job titles, companies, and so forth. Although between us, Facebook has all that data. They just don't let you target it as easily, right? But what's happening right now, a lot of the, and I call it the bozo explosion, but a lot of the consultants to financial advisors and insurance agents and so forth are what they're doing with LinkedIn is very unsophisticated, meaning instead of doing cold calls, because there's a do not call list, why don't you just cold message everybody on LinkedIn, right? Now, and I know that's a service you provide, right? Is one of the services you provide is put a human being on, testing a message and cold messaging. And it's not that doesn't work, right? We have databases where we could go cold email somebody, which cold email, like aka spam, doesn't it's one of those strange things where if I email one person, it's cold email. If I email 100,000 at a time, it's spam. It's the same thing, right? It's but in LinkedIn, a lot of people are teaching just cold message. Everything that we're talking about is buying advertising in LinkedIn, showing up in their feed with that type of advertising. But there is now buying ads within their messages, right? So it's a sponsored inbox. I think that's what it's called.
It's sponsored in mail.
A sponsored email.
Mhm.
How has that been working?
It's okay. It has higher open rates than regular email by far. The sponsored in mail open rates are normally between 40 and 60%. So that part is really good. The conversion is okay because again, it's starting to become a saturated message platform as well. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't always read all the different messages that come through. I just make them unread and then I close out of them. So it's
I can do you one better. I read none of them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those pieces where honestly, it's a good piece to have because it's cheap in LinkedIn to send those messages. Normally it's like less than $1 to send each message overall, because those messages end up sending, you can use the same targeting that you're using for your LinkedIn ads. And then when those people that fall within your targeting group, when they sign into LinkedIn the next time, that's when the message sends and it triggers. So it shows up right at the top of their inbox and it gives you an opportunity to show up there. So again, it's just that extra touch point, that extra piece of visibility that gives you that hand up over the 50,000 other advertisements that they're seeing throughout the rest of the day. And, it's definitely a good tool. And you can also, have your links in it to send them to do something and all of that kind of stuff that you're able to do through those messages. But touching really quick on one thing that, again, makes you want to make sure that you're standing out against all of the other people that are advertising on any platform. So one thing that I know Stephen has talked about, at least with some of the other people in the group, is, finding that thing that differentiates you from a personality standpoint and using that as some of the lead in and some of the attention grabbing material that you can use to catch people's attention on LinkedIn or Facebook or really any platform that you're using. Something that makes you not look like every other compliance geared advisor that's out there that can make you stand out. And that way it's not so much compliance focused, but you can say, hey, everyone here who is a Disney fan or whatever, like I'm a big Disney fan, like let's work together. That using that kind of material really makes you stand out. And again, it clears that barrier for compliance and it doesn't make you just look like some other financial advisor that's like, I can help you do really like, kind of lame claims that compliance make you say, and only being able to not make promises and things like that. But you can create that relationship and that experience with someone on a personal level, and then work on the financial aspect after you already have connected with them.
So Kate, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm also a business coach. So I meld being a business coach for contractors, which I've done for 7 years,
Awesome.
and a financial advisor. That's one set of businesses I have. And I'm working on a book, and what I'd like to do, because so many contractors are so darn busy.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to put in like a part of a chapter and have it be an audio I can deliver so that a contractor can listen to part of the book in his car when he's driving to his jobs. How would I deliver an audio like that?
That's easy. That's super simple. Yeah.
Yep.
And Kate, that gets into something I was going to talk about is, what you're looking for, Paul, is, I keep stealing the John E. Kennedy quote from the 30s or something like that. You want to get inside the conversation already going on in their mind.
Exactly.
And so you're addressing what their need is. And that's with the headline and the photo. And in direct mail or something like that, you don't emphasize the artwork that much. Facebook, what would you say nowadays, Kate? 85% of the likelihood of them clicking is the artwork. It's a pretty big component of it, right? But what you want to do is get inside that conversation and then rotate, experiment with, have multiple campaigns going with, drive them to a webinar or a Zoom meeting. It could be a pretend live, right? We've used Webinar Jam for that. I love Zoom, but Zoom doesn't do that very well. But what I can do is I can do a live meeting, then I can set up as a replay. So they click on and they watch it. You've probably seen a lot of that stuff. Usually,
Aaron, are you familiar with Webinar Jam, what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. I've got a full platform built to that. I didn't have, I had them all recorded, so it was through EverWebinar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Same company.
Yeah.
But live is different from recorded, but you can still use these interactively. But anyway, go ahead, sir.
Right.
But well, and what I was going to say, and David, I already had this conversation. If I have a choice, I'd rather do it live, because then I have, just like we're on here, is I can have, point out, ask them to ask a question. I can use their name. I can pull them in a breakout
It's
room. We
Lee
can do that
Milk
if we wanted to
here,
right
and
now.
I'm delighted to
Pull people
interrupt
one
you
by one in a
today
breakout room.
and let you
We've
know
done
that
it
I've been
where,
working with Stephen
Minnie takes them in a
Oliver
breakout
for
room,
10 or
gets a little
15
bit more
years now.
information,
He's a great
schedules an
guy.
appointment,
I love all
brings
the
them back,
research
takes
that he
somebody else,
does.
right?
And
So,
I just wanted to let you know that
the-
if you're enjoying the
But
content
what
on
I
this
was talking about
podcast,
is
then
the
you
lead
really want to
magnet,
make
right?
time to
Is Paul
visit
the lead magnet could be the book, but it could also be
advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do
each
that?
chapter
Well,
should
because you're
have
going to
a
receive
chapter
2 of
title
his
that's a
great books,
headline
and actually
that's one
one
of
of
those
mine called
topics in their
Success is an
mind,
Inside Job.
right? We've talked
You'll
about that.
also get a lot
So it could
of
be the free
absolutely free
report
material on
or
growing
the
your
audio of
practice
it.
through effective marketing.
And so the
So
actual
again,
deliverable
take
could
the
take them
time
to
to
a
go
page where you
to
can listen to it, download it as an MP3,
advisorwealthmastery.com.
play it as an audio, read the report, whatever you want to do. And Paul, to responsive to your question, I tend to do all of the above. I have a package that I did years ago that was audio CD, DVD, booklet, and all 3 of them were exactly the same content, right? So if they read, and most people who did all of them wouldn't recognize that it was the same thing, but it was exactly the same,
You
right?
just did a landing page that held all the options. So
Yeah,
they could pick and choose what they wanted.
exactly.
That's good.
Exactly. And a lot of times you A/B split test the offer, right? So the offer may be a free podcast on blank, but then when they come to it, it could give them the transcript, or it could give them the chapter or the report also. Or the offer could be the free report, and then when they come to the landing page, it gives them the other things as well. What I like is, the offer is the report, and when they get to the landing page, it says, here's a picture of the book. I'd like to mail you this book. If you give us your address, we'll mail this book to you, right? So you can give them the book as a PDF download, but I'd much rather it show up on their desk, right? So, but the offer could be the evergreen webinar. It could be a live meeting. It could be and it could be a live meeting in your conference room. It could be a live meeting by Zoom, right? The broader the radius. It could be a report. It could be a book. It could be, it was an audio cassette. One of the most successful programs of all time was in the back of Inc. magazine. Write us for your free audio cassette of, I think it's Think and Grow Rich. But it could be an audio nowadays. It could be a podcast. It could be a video. So what we do is we play with the offer, play with the deliverable. The playing with the deliverable is about figuring out which converts better, because all you really care about is having a client, right? And playing with the offer is to see what gets the highest click-through rate.
Yeah. And honestly, just having an offer sets you apart from 90-something% of other financial advisors, because people are still set in the old ways of, oh, I just get new clients through referrals or through events or through going to networking events and joining networking groups and things like that. And just being able to have that offer and have a very specific system around that offer and that content that you're putting out there to actually collect people's contact information sets you apart from everyone. Because it's not that other financial advisors aren't putting content out there, because they are, but it's just a blog post on their website, or they'll put a Facebook post out there, or a LinkedIn
or they're
post
not
out
putting
there.
content out there. Kate.
Yeah, or they're not doing anything. Even more.
You're saying other financial advisors are doing it, but they're not. I mean,
Yeah.
mostly we see that they're not.
Yeah.
And they're
just not collecting any information.
Yeah,
it's the link and that's all.
Yeah, they're not doing it effectively. So then they land on their website and it says set appointment.
Yeah, it's a brochureware.
So,
Yeah.
so a question. So once these leads come in from LinkedIn or Facebook, I think one of the things that would help me a lot is to figure out how to qualify those leads and get those through a process to get them to set an appointment to go through a closing process.
Sure.
That was one of my challenges, is not knowing how much traffic I would need to generate in order to create a new client through that method. And so it was difficult to not just write a blank check every month for marketing with no numbers. So any feedback on that?
Absolutely. And I'm going to pull something up here to show a little bit more deeply. But my company, at least, I'm sure there's plenty of other companies out there that are just as data oriented as we are, but
You got to pitch yourself. Come on.
Yeah, we are
about it.
completely data important. Like, data is the biggest thing that drives everything that we do. So like I mentioned, we're constantly testing which versions are working best. But even aside from that, we're tracking.
You're working with what, 40 of our clients right now, I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
More or less.
Example of a generator that we have for people, campaigns, and each lead that comes through at any time, we have all of their information on a spreadsheet, and then there can be notes left as to whether anything is happening. And I'm going to stop sharing because it's
Yeah, you're right. Every time
but anyway, we create a spreadsheet that tracks as much data as we're collecting. So we can have some of those qualifiers in there as well that also get piped to that spreadsheet, so that oh, this person is in the 100 to 500,000 assets potential under management area, or they're over $1 million, or they're broke, or whatever. So we can collect that data and then transfer it really to anywhere you need it. We can put it into a spreadsheet. We can put it into a CRM if you have like a sales system or anything like that. If you have like HubSpot or something along those lines, we can put it in there. But always, always, always tracking every single lead that comes through. And then when we are running the campaign, we're having regular check-in calls. So we can check in and be like, oh yeah, I saw that you had an appointment with Sherry. Did that go anywhere? How did that go? Can we move it forward in the process? We want to make sure that we're giving you as many real opportunities, and not just being that like, well, here's dead leads that aren't going to go anywhere. And really working on tweaking the targeting so that based on your feedback to create the additional opportunity to get in front of more of the right people.
Yeah.
So,
well, and to stay on your topic, is one suggestion I would have for you is always go play prospect. Is go to two of them that are particularly good is Smart Assets, who they're of course selling leads to advisors, but they have a multi-step process where they qualify the person through the process. That's pretty good. And the other one is Fisher, which is head and shoulders above everybody else from a standpoint of direct response marketing, and look at what their process is. But going back to what you were saying, Kate, on the automating part, right, is what I always try to do is build it where there's direct mail, text messaging, email, and automated voicemail. In other words, sounds like a live person called, but it goes directly to their voicemail, and a human calling them. But what we'll do is we'll create campaigns where it has a tree. So they give you a little bit of information, then it takes you to another page. They give you a little bit more information. And based upon what they said in the first page, determines which page you take them to on the second page, determines where you take them to on the third page. And then you're sorting for qualification before a live person does an outbound call, right? So, and depending upon how you want it to be targeted, like Fisher, it's just how much assets you have, right? and, option 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they're sorting it out based upon assets. And I can tell you, if you tell them you're a whale, you're getting bombarded with mail and everything else. And if you tell them you're a minnow, you're kind of going into, you get some email, you might come back to life, but they're not paying much attention to you, right? So to be specific response to what you're saying is, you build that, right? So you see the LinkedIn page she was showing, it didn't get a lot of information, but then it could take them to another page where it gets more in depth. Then it could take them, if you wanted to yet another page where it gets more in depth. You're going to have some loss from page to page, but then it sorts out. Like we've got one where it starts them out, and this is on the martial arts side, starts them out where we distinguish between like traditional schools and MMA, because they think differently. And then they get to a landing page with a spokesmodel. The script is the same, but the green screen backdrop looks different on the two, right? So it triggers, oh, this is for me. But then one of the questions we ask them is revenue. And if they're under 10,000 a month, they go into oblivion. And if they're 10 to 20, they get a little bit of follow-up. And if they say they're over 20,000 a month, they get popcorn and cookies and boxes and, all that kind of stuff, right? And so in your case, that's what you want to know, and again, you want to determine what criteria you're going to want to chase them. But let's say it was like Fisher, they've determined under $500,000, they don't want to talk to them. Over $500,000, they do. And then they've also determined over, I remember, but I think they have 4 categories. So at the higher category, all the big guns come a-blazing for you, right? And what you're getting is more robust, more substantive, and more expensive, right? So we know that, to use that other example, if somebody's doing $500,000 a year and we spend $300 chasing them, it's fine, right? Because they're going to be worth 100,000 or 150,000 to us. However, if somebody's under 10,000, we're not going to spend any money chasing them because they're not, that their value is probably zero. So you determine the steps based upon what you want it to be, what your criteria is. And by the way, to be fair, is at the lower levels of revenue, you're much more willing to chase somebody than as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And there's a couple strategies to that too, long term, which is, one strategy is you start to build staff and the junior person chases the lower minnow, the minnows, and you only chase the whales. I prefer a different strategy, which is you're only chasing the whales, but you have somebody who's an appointment setter. So they're doing, and you'll see, like with me, is there's 2 stages, right? So they go to oblivion, and then they go to Mindy, and then they go to Greg, and then they get to me. On the other side, we do the same thing. They go to oblivion, they go to Bob, they go to Jeff, they go to me. So you start, as you build, you start building it that way, where you're only talking to the people who are going to create an adequate amount of revenue for you.
And you can
having that CRM available that can track that data is really important, because especially for the assets or something like that, if you get a 40-year-old coming through, well, maybe in 10 years, they're totally going to fall into a level of investment that you're interested in pursuing. So, being able to then follow up with those people later on and being able to hit them up once, there's more potential, and staying in touch with them during that time on a minimum involvement level for you is really important throughout the whole time.
Yeah. Aaron, did that answer that question?
It does. Now, how to go about setting that up, that would be something I would be interested in learning more about, just to, figure out how to get the lead from Facebook or LinkedIn, and get those individuals into a system where they'll give up that information, where you can, send them down different channels. That would be something I don't know how to do, I guess.
We can either, like if you use K to Rev Marketing, they'll do that for you.
Gotcha.
If you're not using that, we can do anything from give you the outline and the tools to have Merrick set it up for you.
That's it.
So any of the above. And what system are you using? I think you told me, but I'm brain dead after the long weekend, I think. The CRMs, what system are you using to keep track of your leads right now?
Well, I've got a couple, but if through the webinar and Webinar Jam and EverWebinar, it was Kartra.
Okay.
Kartra was the, I guess, the autoresponder. And then I've got a couple of other ones that are kind of offsets of that.
Okay. Are you familiar with Kartra? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's a nice all-included one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Sometimes it talks to things well. Just depends.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Aaron, are you also concerned about what to do when you're on the phone with them? How to filter them out once you get them on the actual call?
Well, or filter them out before you bother calling them.
Well, right, but I'm wondering about that stage too. Once we have a prospect that seems to be a good lead, in that stage of it.
Well, two things. As soon as they come in as a lead, where they give up the information in exchange for the lead magnet, a lot of times that might be a name and an email address, perhaps.
Well,
I don't know how much.
Too.
Yeah, and if you get the phone number, I guess at that point is that where you're trying to call and qualify that person specifically, or is there another step where you are, what's the, from the time that they come in as a lead, I guess, what's the first process that you would go through, after that? Is it straight to the call?
Again, I mean, there's all of this stuff you kind of A/B split test, right? And there's, I'm going to say there's probably a difference between what I like best and what Kate likes best. And part of that is the natural agency syndrome, which is they want to have opt-ins to talk about cost per opt-in, nothing personal, Kate. And I want to have solid, as much detail as possible before I invest time in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, just from a predisposition standpoint, I hate email. Fuck email. Email's, dead. And it's really not, but I'm at that stage of, don't tell me about email. I want to be able to physically mail to them. I want to be able to text them, and I want to be able to call them, right? And I will say all three of those things work massively better than email. Email has the advantage of being free, right? Essentially. But so really most of the time, the answer is yes, you're going to get more data before you're going to start making outbound phone calls. Unless you just are in the learning stage where I just want to talk to anybody I can talk to figure out first who it is I want to talk to, right? And when we launch something new, a lot of times, Mindy will tell you, we've gone through stages of we just want to talk to anybody, because as soon as we talk to anybody, we're going to figure out who we didn't want to talk to, and then know how they fit into, right? So, Paul, in your niching, there's an awful lot of people are going to call themselves contractors you don't want to talk to, right? And if you already have a clear idea of that, great. But if you don't have, then you start with, I'm just going to talk to all of them. One of the best top copywriters ever, his name was Gary Halbert, and he talks about creating something new within a niche. He just wanted to go talk to 100 of them and figure out what was going on in their head and one thing or another, but in part to figure out who he never wanted to talk to again, and in part to figure out how the ones he wants to talk to were thinking about things. Does that make sense, Aaron?
It does.
Yeah.
And it may be that the filtering does end up, your testing does require a live person to talk to them, and that may be one of the stages, and it just may not be you.
Yeah.
Just like we're talking about, with Mindy.
Mindy to death, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the lead comes in, and what we know is they're more likely to respond if you call within 30 seconds or a minute. So if you're generating leads and you have a higher likelihood to get them on the phone, whether they're a good quality lead or not, then we may So you're asking a question and you want like a specific answer. And what the answer is we have to try these things and see, depending on what you want to do in your niche. And so when the lead comes in, it may end up being that we stick a live person in, which might be you for now. And then you figure out what happens, which means we may need to have a good phone script and kind of beat up what that phone script looks like, which is also going to give you more data so that when you have somebody working for you, you can manage them properly. So this will all fit together as you build up your business. And once you do that, then you'll know, can we automate this or not? If we can't automate it, then we can hire somebody relatively cheaply to be able to filter things out on the front end so that you're going to be able to catch the people that have a good shot at being a good client downstream.
Yep. And our organization has a cold calling and appointment setting arm to it as well. So, having that full service lead generation where we're building the campaigns for you and monitoring and managing all of that, but then also working on calling and following up with the people, with our staff, calling them and utilizing a script that's all, approved in advance and all that kind of stuff, but hoping to work on that qualifying piece as well and just getting that appointment set for you, or one of your teams so that you're able to then, move them forward through the line. But on the data collection piece, almost all of our campaigns we're trying to get phone number right from the get-go, where we're getting first name, last name, email, and phone number, and company name normally too. LinkedIn does provide a little bit more data as well, but depending on the campaign and who they're going after, company may or may not be important. But we do always almost try to consistently get that email and phone number right from the get-go, and then get the additional information to a little bit later down the line.
And Kate, I know we were doing this with Facebook. Can you automate going into their in-mail on
Yes.
LinkedIn the way we were doing on Facebook?
Yep, you can.
Okay, because one of the things we would do on Facebook is as soon as they raise their hand, we could send them a message in Facebook, and that was automated. So
Yes,
they show up in
same
Facebook
thing.
Messenger.
Yep.
And you can do the same thing in LinkedIn. So they fill out the information, then they get a message in LinkedIn, which presumably would either be taking them to a page to get more demographic qualification information, or taking them to perhaps a calendar link to schedule an appointment.
Yep.
But let's go back to your original question though, is now before you write a check into advertising, it's a really good idea to know what the cost per sale is going to be, right? Not just all this other number, but what the cost per sale is. So, Kate, one of the examples you used is it was getting an $11 lead.
Yep.
And it was getting a $37. There you go.
Yep.
$37 cost per appointment. Now, from that number, a reasonable benchmark would be is at least you'd get half of them, probably higher, but at least half of them to you actually had an appointment where you were talking to them, right? Either face to face or by Zoom. And then I would, another half would go from that conversation to client, with the caveat they would have to be qualified for what you're looking for,
Yep.
right? So, but if you take that number, so $37, double it, you're at $74. Double it, you're at $150 per enrollment. And perhaps that's a little optimistic. So maybe the appointment to enroll to client is going to be a third. So now we're at $75, triple it, we're at $225 for sale, right? So now I know if my revenue immediately and my revenue in the short period of time is going to justify a $225 sale. If my lifetime value, and the nice thing about this business is the lifetime value tends to be really high because year over year you keep them basically forever, right? The initial value, if that's high enough that you're break even or 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1 on that initial transaction, then you're in clover. One of the advisors I worked with, which is an anomaly, I would say, but he was in La Jolla. His average new client had 2.2 million. So basically what happened is everyone who came in, he could count on they're going to put 2.2 million assets under management. 1% of 2.2 million was a pretty good payday in the first year. And so his cost per new client could be pretty high because the value was pretty high. And then of course he's going to keep them for an average of 20 years. So the lifetime value was strong as well. Does that answer that question, Aaron?
It does. It does. That's I guess you just won't know that number until you get down the, get down the path a little bit.
Well, and part of our job is to make the number better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And a lot of the upfront process is really figuring out who it is you want as a client, right? And depending upon who it is you're looking for as a client, which I think should be to a great deal predicated on how much money they're likely to spend with you, right? Is that changes the dynamic. And I've worked with people who they just want to help everybody in their community. Well, I'd rather them have $1 million a year income and then do pro bono work, right? Rather than just, we want to help everybody in the community. So then you narrow it down into who's likely to be worth $5,000 in the first year. And then let's target those people. And then it's really easy to make the numbers work from there.
Gotcha.
One quick question. I know we need to segue pretty soon, but
Yes.
Kate, what's a rough charge? Because these are advertising costs. It doesn't include your company. And I'm sure you guys need to make something for what you guys do. What's a general rate of what you guys charge?
Yeah, we have a couple of different package levels based on the services being provided. So one add-on would be like if we had our cold callers making those appointments for you. So we range anywhere from 1,500 to about 5,000, depending on the service. And we've partnered
per
with
month
even
or
before.
per
Yep,
what?
per month. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And then advertising costs on top of that.
Yeah.
And
okay.
for most of the clients that we have on the martial arts side, at least, they spend in total about 2,200 per month max, because they're in that $1,500 range. And most of them only need 3 or 4 enrollments to make that more than break even each month. And those they're normally getting pretty quickly. And now the case is a little bit different with financial people because, people aren't necessarily like investing right away, but the cost does end up working out pretty well in the end. And, getting more people on your list is well worth it.
Yeah. Well, and a conversation for another day is a big problem, I think, with most advisors is that they don't use other tools to build their credibility.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I posted a picture in the Facebook group, so you guys might take a look. But as you well know, I play prospect for everybody, and I start clicking on ads, and then I start getting more ads because I'm clicking on them, and I fill out and usually when you fill out the form, all you get is a couple of emails and they're gone. Or like when I opted into Smart Advisor a couple of times, a couple of guys called me for a week and then they gave up, right? But there's a local here, Westminster, Colorado, a guy that sent me this great package. Now, it wasn't as probably elaborate as what we might put together for somebody, but it was good. It had a book and it had a pocket folder and had a pen and a notepad and a description of the team and right. I mean, it was pretty good, right? And Fisher, I've gotten a couple packages from them that were pretty good. But see, what happens is they don't buy from you quickly. Tends to be you haven't built much credibility with them, right? And you guys have both seen all the crap we send out, right? It's so much different than what somebody who puts you into an email autoresponder campaign and just drips on you forever by email does, that it makes a huge difference in their perception. Do you guys have any other questions for Kate? Kate, we've I think you and I have been on Zoom together for 4 hours today. So
pretty close. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah, we started out at 10 and then we were at noon and then we're at 2.
I can talk about this stuff all day, so it's all good.
You guys have any questions for Kate before we let her call it a day? And Aaron, you would prefer to be called Aaron than David, right?
Yes, I probably need to I need to fix that.
Yeah. Because what happens is we'll get started in a conversation like, oh no, he prefers Aaron, and then you get we have on the recording it'll sound weird because we called you David and we called you Aaron and we called you who was it that I was doing that to the other day, Mindy? I'm always real careful to make sure I got it right to begin with, because I was calling Tony
No, you were calling somebody who wasn't Tony.
okay.
Yeah.
I really like Tony, but he wasn't Tony.
Yeah.
Tony's our Star Wars geek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that fixes that.
yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
You guys have any questions for Kate?
If we did want to go through Kate, I guess you have the contact information to get in touch with her.
Yeah, she's also a member of the Facebook group.
Okay.
And Kate, you probably should just post all the PowerPoints and stuff you did in there for that. And Aaron, the conversation would be on that is, I have absolute faith that they'll have great results for you. The question is, are we at the stage where you have enough cash flow that we want to devote $2,000-3,000 a month to that channel?
Right.
And if not, then let's build some other pillars that'll work, and then hand it off to them when you're at that point, right?
Yes, sir.
So I mean, that really is the methodology that would work. Like, again, we talk about the martial arts schools, but the martial arts schools, the guys that are under about 25,000 a month, we don't point them that direction. We point them at other stuff, and then when they get to a point where time is more valuable than the money, if that makes sense, on a per hour basis, then we start to get them to hand off, same as we would with you guys. So it's that kind of decision, which is, don't go in the mindset of, oh my God, I got to do that. That's not in the budget right now. We've got to rebuild some of the stuff. And Kate, in his case, he was doing really pretty well with live events, and then COVID hit.
Yep.
And didn't do a good job of shifting to the live event by video rather than the live event in person.
Mm-hmm.
Shifted to fake live, which I never think works nearly as well. You have to have lots of numbers coming through that funnel, and then just have it be an intermediate step for that to work. We do some of that, but it's not the primary thing that I would prefer to do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And we're not one of those agencies. We've been partners with Steven and running his ads, I don't know, for what, 4 or something years now, and
More than that. It's got to be
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget how long ago that the sale happened, but it was it was a year or two before that.
Yeah, it was before my time, so I only know the last 4 years. But
Yeah.
I mean, we're in for the long haul. We want to be a resource, and we want to be a partner for long term in helping people grow. And I'm not looking for okay, give me your money tomorrow or anything like that. But let's continue to be a resource, and we want to make everyone successful.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you, Kate, and hopefully we don't do 4 hours on Zoom any time again soon, but
yeah, well, it's my fault. I had to cancel one last week, so that added some. So
there you go. We were punishing you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All good. Well, it's nice to meet you guys. I popped my email in chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will also post in the Facebook group. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up at any time.